Coming up, the Hurricanes suffer their first loss of the season while the Wild finally get a win. This is Locked On Game to Game NHL.
Every game, every team, every angle. Locked On Game to Game, your team every day.
Welcome in. You're listening to Locked On Game to Game NHL, local experts on all of the biggest stories on the ice. I'm your host, Kaidani Stevens. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every weekday. Make sure you go and subscribe to Locked On NHL on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcasts from. We have our hosts here ready to recap all of the action for you from yesterday. The Bruins stayed hot to start the season with a shootout win at home over the Ducks. Locked On Bruins and Locked On Ducks recap the finish from Boston.
The Boston Bruins have improved to 4-1 on this young season after a shootout win over the Anaheim Ducks. This is Ian McLaren, host of Locked On Boston Bruins, and all the offense came off the stick of Taylor Hall, who scored for the Bruins in regulation time and added the lone shootout goal to seal the victory. The bigger star for the Bruins in this game was Linus Ullmark, especially in overtime, who made a few amazing saves and has established himself here early on as the Bruins' de facto number one goaltender. Matt Grzelcyk made his season debut for the Bruins as they slowly get back to health. Brad Marchand and Charlie McAvoy still a ways away, but to get 8 out of a possible 10 points to begin the season is a fantastic start for the Boston Bruins.
Another rough outing for the Ducks as they lose their 4th consecutive game on this road trip. Hi everyone, Jason JD Hernandez here from Locked On Anaheim Ducks as Anaheim falls to the Boston Bruins in a shootout 2-1 at TD Garden. Taylor Hall didn't have to wait till midnight to drop that shootout game winner against John Gibson, but credit to the Ducks for at least playing a better game, having a better forecheck, and for the first time all season, the Ducks actually outshot their opponents in a period. The third period, in fact, for Anaheim. It was 1-1 for a while, and honestly, the Ducks did play better overall defense in this one, but it was not to be because they could only manage just one goal. And the Ducks were still outshot in this game. That's now 5 games to start the season where the Ducks have been outshot. Can they manage to get one win this road trip at Detroit? We'll find out next time, and make sure to stay locked into Locked On Ducks wherever you get your podcasts.
The Canadiens went on a scoring spree on Thursday, scoring 6 goals to take care of the Coyotes. Locked On Canadiens has plenty to be happy about after a big win.
Run, gun, and fun. Hi everyone, my name is Laura Saba of Locked On Canadiens and the Montreal Canadiens with a dominant 6-2 win over the Arizona Coyotes. Can't slouch. The Arizona Coyotes beat the Toronto Maple Leafs a couple of nights ago. So, they are a juggernaut. The Habs, what can you say? Arbor Jacki with a massive fight. He really brought his Costco or Kirkland Killer nickname to life in the game. But the big story was Yuri Slafkovsky, obviously, with his first NHL goal of his career. Nick Suzuki had a massive penalty shot. Everybody performed this amazing, fun. They put on a show for the Habs fans, and all you can say is that this is a testament to the way that Martin St. Louis wants his players to be, wants his players to play. He wanted them to love playing hockey again, and tonight they certainly did. And we are going to talk more about the Montreal Canadiens. We're going to talk about that game. We're going to analyze it all on Locked On Canadiens, available wherever you get your podcasts.
Erik Karlsson scored the game winner to give the San Jose Sharks an overtime victory on the road over the Rangers. Locked On Sharks takes you through the win in New York.
The San Jose Sharks finally win a game. I'm JD Young of Locked On Sharks, and the Sharks beat the Rangers 3-2 in overtime thanks to Erik Karlsson's superstar-like play to get Timo Meier the puck and finish it off in overtime, beating Shesterkin. The Sharks played their best period of the season in the third period, where they dominated the Rangers, dominated the shots on goal, and finally were able to put together a quality game to get their first win. So good for the Sharks, good for David Quinn to get his first win against his old team. And the Sharks no longer remain winless after their sixth attempt to get their first win. So we'll have more breakdown of tonight's game, what this means for the Sharks going forward, and maybe the start of something here. So all that and more on your next episode of Locked On Sharks, wherever you get podcasts.
The Washington Capitals ended the first period with a 2-goal lead, but then gave up 5 straight in Ottawa to the Senators and took the loss. Locked On Capitals tells us what went wrong for Washington.
The Washington Capitals fall to the Ottawa Senators by a score of 5-2. Hi, this is Dan Holme of Locked On Capitals. Down 2 of their top 6 forwards from the opening night roster, the Capitals took a 2-0 lead over the Ottawa Senators midway through the first period, but couldn't hold on to the lead. And the story for me was that was a hungry Ottawa Senators team that really took it to the Capitals in their physical game. And I think that it was more than the Capitals could bear. The Senators scored 5 unanswered goals to steal the 5-2 win and halt the Capitals' early season winning streak at 2. And what it's about for me personally is the lack of the physical game. You're really starting to notice the absence of Tom Wilson out on the ice. He is a bit of a sheriff, if you will, of the Washington Capitals. And with him out of the lineup, you're really seeing how the other teams are really kind of taking it to the Caps physically. If Tom Wilson was out there, they would have had to answer to him. And I don't think that any of those guys on that team would have wanted to step up to him, given his reputation and what he brings to this team. So the Caps hope to get back into the win column Saturday as they take on the LA Kings. Keep it to Locked On Capitals, and I'll keep you covered on all the news surrounding your Washington Capitals. Locked On Capitals, your team every day.
Coming up, the Penguins make it look easy against the Kings, and the Stars take their first loss of the year. This is Locked On Game to Game NHL. This edition of Locked On Game to Game is brought to you by Bet Online. It's the #1 spot for all of your online sports gambling needs. National Hockey League is back. National Basketball Association is back. And of course, football is well underway at this point. So whatever sport you like to bet on, you can do that at betonline.net. It's where the game starts. Welcome back to Locked On Game to Game NHL. I'm Kainani Stevens. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every single weekday. 6 different Penguins scored the first 6 goals at home against the Kings last night to make things look pretty easy for Pittsburgh. Locked On Kings and Penguins have the recap of that blowout.
The Kings' 3-game win streak is snapped as they fall for the first time on the road this season. Hi, I'm Eddie Garcia with the Locked On LA Kings podcast. The Kings got roughed up in Pittsburgh, losing 6-1 on Thursday. The crazy thing is the Kings actually dominated the opening period of play with puck possession and time in the Penguin zone, but couldn't get the puck past Pens goalie Tristan Jarry. Meanwhile, Kings starting goalie Cal Peterson didn't have much luck keeping the puck out of his own net, allowing 3 first-period goals and getting replaced after the opening period by veteran Jonathan Quick. The Kings' power play, which showed a lot of promise to start the season, has gone cold of late, just 2 for 14 with the man advantage over the last 2 games. Their lone goal did come on a late power play in the third period from Carl Grundstrom, with rookie defenseman Brant Clark picking up his first career NHL point with an assist. The Kings will close out their 9-day, 5-game road trip on Saturday in Washington, D.C. against the Capitals. We'll have a full recap of the loss in Pittsburgh on Friday's show and look ahead to the game against the Caps. For more, check out Locked On LA Kings wherever you get your podcasts, your team every day.
Well, that's one way to bounce back from a devastating loss on Monday. Hey everyone, I'm Hunter Hodes here with the Locked On Penguins podcast, back with another Locked On Now video as the Penguins absolutely dismantled the Los Angeles Kings 6-1 on Thursday night. They're now 3-0-1 to start the 2022-2023 season. This was a game that looked like it was going to get out of control early. The Penguins were on their heels for a lot of the first period, but some timely saves made by Tristan Jarry was able to kickstart the Penguins offense, and then they're basically up 3-0 going into the first intermission. They had a few more goals, and by the end, they win 6-1. Ryan Poehling, Jeff Petrie, and Jan Rutta all get their first goals as a member of the Pittsburgh Penguins. And then Ricard Raquel, Jeff Carter, and Jake Gensel also score for the Penguins. Next up for them is a trip to Columbus to play the Blue Jackets before they start their Western Canada trip. For more on the Pittsburgh Penguins, you can check out the Locked On Penguins podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
The Dallas Stars lose their first game of the year, and it really wasn't a pretty one for them either in Toronto. Locked On Stars goes over the overtime loss on the road.
The Dallas Stars suffer their first loss of the season against the Toronto Maple Leafs, but they still find a way to record at least 1 point. Hey everybody, Dane Lewis here with the Locked On Stars podcast, coming to you just moments after the conclusion of the Dallas Stars game in Toronto against the Maple Leafs. And this was a very ugly game for the Dallas Stars. For one, the offense certainly not as potent as it was in previous games against the Predators and the Jets, but the Stars were still getting their fair share of looks and, of course, did execute a few goals from Luke Glendening and Tyler Seguin. Scott Wedgwood looked really sharp in his season debut, but really the biggest storyline of this game for the Stars is the penalties. The Stars racked up 16 penalty minutes, and thankfully their penalty kill went 7 for 8 on the evening. But ultimately, the Stars just never really could get much going offensively, especially in the middle of the game, because they continued to have players in the box, which you can't do that against a team like the Toronto Maple Leafs that can score really at any moment in the game with any of their personnel on the ice. The Stars are lucky that they didn't lose this game by more, and they're lucky that they at least salvage 1 point in this matchup as they go into their next game on Saturday against the Montreal Canadiens. But we're going to talk more about this game on Friday's episode of Locked On Stars. You can find us on YouTube or your favorite podcasting platform. We are free and available no matter where or how you choose to listen, and we'll see you on Friday's episode.
The Edmonton Oilers handing Carolina their first loss of this season. Locked On Oilers, so happy to see special teams coming through in the win.
Special Teams tells the story as the Edmonton Oilers take the 2006 Stanley Cup Finals rematch. Hi, I'm Brad Holden from Locked On Oilers, and the Edmonton Oilers win 6-4 at home against the Carolina Hurricanes, giving them their first loss of the season. Leon Draisaitl with the game-winning goal, as that is his only point in the game, as he is left wide open in front of the net on the power play. Somebody you don't want to leave wide open in front of the door on the power play. Connor McDavid getting a goal and 3 assists, his goal coming on the empty netter to put the game away 4 points for McDavid. But as we mentioned, it was a team and a game of special teams. Both teams going 2 for 5 on the power play. 4 power play goals in the game, and 1 shorthanded goal coming from Ryan McLeod, his second goal of the season. That was assisted by Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, who also had a 1 goal, 3 assist night. 4 points for him, and Jack Campbell putting a bow on it with 36 saves. The Edmonton Oilers are back at it on Saturday at home in a matinee against the St. Louis Blues.
The Golden Knights took advantage of Winnipeg's early mistakes and held on for a 5-2 win last night. Locked On Jets and Locked On Golden Knights break things down from both sides.
Winnipeg fans, the Jets have just finished off a bit of a tough road trip. Obviously, winning against the Colorado Avalanche on Wednesday evening set the Jets up for what could have been a really fun outing against the Vegas Golden Knights. Unfortunately, a very sloppy opening start with some less than ideal goaltending from backup goaltender David Rittich ended up putting the Jets in an early hole that the team simply wasn't capable of crawling out of. While the Jets are collecting themselves and getting ready for a very tough test against the Toronto Maple Leafs this weekend, the Jets are probably thinking that they have a lot of work to do and the roster could use some help. We'll talk a little bit more on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Winnipeg Jets about how Winnipeg might solve some of their current issues and get ready for the rest of the season. So be sure to like, follow, and subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform right now. And as always, thanks for making Locked On Winnipeg Jets your first listen of the day. See you folks soon. And as always, have a great one and go Jets go.
The Golden Knights win at T-Mobile Arena. Hey folks, Chris Golick, Locked On Vegas Golden Knights here. A fun game by all means. Very solid start for the VGK. Almost got, oh my goodness, just hit the post. They almost got away from the VGK, but they got there in the end. There we go. All right, folks. We'll have a full report tomorrow morning. Please catch Locked On Vegas Golden Knights anywhere you get your podcast from. Your team every day.
That's all for today on Locked On Game to Game NHL. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every weekday. Make sure you go and subscribe to Locked On NHL and your team's Locked On podcast on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcasts from. I'm Kainani Stevens. This has been Locked On Game to Game.